So in this problem, we are given a function that measures the normal consumption of a perfume when a luxury tax of X% is imposed on it. We're asked to find the rate of change if the taxes are 45%, 100%, and 145%. So we need to find the derivative of the function that we're given. Now before we do that, let's rewrite the original function. So I'm just going to write n of x, and we want to rewrite the square root as an exponent. So I'm going to take the values that are underneath the square root, I'm going to write them all in the parentheses raised to the positive 1/2 power. So that's going to help us out when we actually go to take the derivative. So now I'm going to take the derivative of the function, and it's a bunch of terms raised to a power, so we're going to use the chain rule. So we're going to bring down our 1/2. I'm going to write down the terms of that inside function. And I'm going to subtract 1 from the exponent, which would be negative 1/2. And then we have to multiply by the derivative of the inside function. So 10,000, the derivative of that would be 0. Negative 40x, the derivative of that would be negative 40. And then negative 0.02 x squared, we're going to use the power rule. So I'm going to multiply the 2 times the 0.02. So that would give us 0.04. And then reduce the power on x, so we just get x to the power of 1. So there's our derivative. Now we're going to use this derivative to plug in the values of 45, 100, and 45. So I'm going to simplify a little bit before I put this into my calculator. So one thing that I can do is I can reorganize this as I please. So I can put the 1/2 in the front, and then I can bring this group to the front as well, in front of the trinomial there. Just going to move this group of 2, I'm going to multiply it here, just to visualize something. Now, the trinomial, the group that's in the parentheses raised to the negative 1/2 power, I can't distribute inside of that because anything that's raised to an exponent, that's a group that I can't distribute into because I have to take care of the exponent first before I could do any multiplication. But this first group doesn't have an exponent, so I can actually multiply these two together. And 1/2 of negative 40 would be negative 20. So I'm going to multiply this in, and that would be negative 0.02. Alright, now I'm just going to choose to do that. You don't have to simplify if you don't want to, but I'm going to choose to simplify a little bit to just make the numbers a little bit easier to plug into the calculator. So I'm going to do one of these for you. I'm going to put in 45. So I'm going to put in 45 into the derivative everywhere that I have an x. And what I'm going to do as well is the outer two parentheses, I'm going to write them as brackets. Parentheses and brackets are really the same thing, but it'll help kind of distinguish between the parentheses that are there for the 45 and the parentheses that are there for multiplication of the two groups. So I'm going to say times 10,000 minus 40 times 45 minus 0.02, and then that will be 45 squared. I'm going to put a closed bracket there, and I need to raise that to the negative 1/2 power. So when you put this into your calculator, one thing that you could do is you could do this part separately, so you could figure out what all of this was and then multiply it times all of this. So figure out what all of this is in the brackets and then raise it to the negative 1/2 power. Here's the thing that you want to be careful about though. When you raise it to the negative 1/2 power, you put your little caret symbol in there from your calculator. Start by putting parentheses for the exponent because we want to put in a negative and a 1 and then divide it by 2 and then close out the parentheses. That way you're raising it to the negative 1/2 power, you're not raising it just to the power of negative 1. So you want to be careful there. And the solution that we get there, when I type that into my calculator, I got negative 0.231. Okay, so this is the value that I got when I substituted 45 into that first parentheses. I got negative 20.9. And then I simplified everything over here, raised it to the negative 1/2 power, and I got this. I just left them in my calculator, multiplied them together, and I rounded to the nearest 3 decimal places. So I got negative 0.231. Now for the other numbers, you're going to do just the same thing. You're going to plug them in into the derivative and then simplify, and be careful how you type it into your calculator.